If I'm being honest, a little over a year ago, I was feeling super burned out when it comes to being behind the camera. And that is when I decided to buy this thing. I feel like throughout the last year, I've really changed what I'm looking to capture when I'm walking around with the camera. I sort of look back on how I got started in photography, and I remember being much more in love with the smaller moments instead of these massive, epic moments that just get paraded around social media. It's been a little over a year since I bought the Fuji X100V, and a few weeks ago, I decided to take this camera on a pretty last-minute trip to Scotland. Throughout the progression of the trip, this camera acted as a reminder of why it has helped me fall back in love with photography. So let's talk about it. So before I dive in too far, since I bought the X100V, Fujifilm has replaced it with the X100VI. So as you can imagine, the newer version is packed with some pretty cool features. Personally, I opted out from upgrading mainly because, I did just buy this thing a little over a year ago. And if I'm being honest, this camera is still impressive, and it's really all I need from a camera like this as of right now. Obviously, a larger sensor is cool and the crop factor is better on the X100VI, but in terms of justifying a full upgrade from this, I'm still more than happy with what the X100V offers as of right now. Regardless whether you're shooting on the X100V or the X100VI, everything that I'm talking about in this video still applies because both cameras have brought back a style of photography that has helped me and a lot of other photographers that I know return to a more real storytelling side of photography. What I like the most about this camera is how it emulates the look of film. My first camera was a Canon AE1 that my dad used while he was in art school back in the early 80s. I remember as a senior in high school, just wandering around town with friends, capturing little moments and learning how to value each shot through shooting film. So the fact that this camera does such a good job at reflecting different types of film is really nice. My past visit to Scotland was my first time visiting the country. I spent a lot of time in the Scottish Highlands, and I noticed a lot of similarities to countries like Iceland with moody landscapes, green hills, and river deltas that cut through the countryside. Almost every photo that I took over there was shot on the X100V, and there was a lot of liberating aspects to shooting on a camera like this. One of the first things that stood out to me when I started shooting on this camera is not feeling like I'm limited to certain weather conditions while I'm shooting. Regardless if there is intense sunlight or darker, more moody weather, the color science on the Fuji X100V brings out color that pulls me into every shot that I take on this thing. So between villages, cottages, small moments on the road, and the coastline, it was really hard to put this thing down. The recipe aspect on this camera is probably my favorite part of what makes this camera so fun to shoot with. Each programs specific settings within the camera that emulate different types of film and color. There's an entire library of these that you can find on the Fuji Weekly app that you can download onto your phone. This is where you can sample and test multiple looks that you can add to the camera. The X100V only allows you to program around 7 recipes at any one time, and once I found a handful that I enjoyed working with, it gave me a chance to go and change the settings to better suit what I'm looking for in the photos that I'm taking. So while you can go in and customize your list of recipes, I really only kept the same 7 during the time that I've been using this camera. Over the last year, my go-to recipes have been Old Kodak, Acida Soft, Portra 400, Kodak Portra 160V2, and Kodak Max 800. These have given me a pretty good balance of warm and cool tones based on what and where I'm shooting. In Scotland, I primarily used Acida Soft, which really helped bring out the mood and the cracks of light that appeared as we traveled along the countryside. There's a few subtle aspects to this camera that I've really enjoyed in the shooting process. Shooting on the X100V reminded me that when it comes to shooting, more often than not, less is more. Obviously, some compositions call for certain types of lenses when shooting, but the fixed 23mm lens has removed any itch to swap out a lens and lose out on the moment right in front of me. Walking around Edinburgh and other villages along the coast, the top-down display makes for subtly grabbing each shot much easier. Depending on your preferences and how much editing you're wanting to do, I always recommend shooting in JPEG and RAW. This allows for the recipe to be baked into the JPEG file, leaving the RAW version something that you can use to edit either the same look or whichever you prefer. As I entered this year with the X100V, I didn't want to just capture moments. I found joy and fell back in love with being behind the camera again. And that's something that can be really hard to juggle, especially when you do this for a living and you come in contact with the reality of burnout. This camera took me back to what I aligned with in the beginning. It's not the savior of photography by any means. I think this mentality should honestly be taken into whatever camera that you might be using. There's this balance of light, gesture, and color that I was always taught early on, and this camera has sort of reignited that spark. Okay, so if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching. If you want to follow along some of the shots that I've been getting on this thing, feel free to follow along on Instagram at the link below. Also, please let me know in the comments below your thoughts when it comes to shooting on the X100V or the X100VI, or just your thoughts in general. I'm honestly curious how this camera has helped other people as well. And be sure to hit the notification bell as well to be notified about future videos. Hit that subscribe button and feel free to like and share. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.